The call came on a Tuesday evening while I was helping my daughter with her homework. Emily was in the kitchen, humming while she chopped vegetables for dinner, the picture of domestic bliss. When my phone buzzed, I almost didn't answer. "Dad?" I said, balancing the phone between my ear and shoulder as I pointed to a math problem. "Son, I need you to come home." His voice was gruff, tired. "Family reunion this weekend." I hadn't been back to the house in over a year. Not since the last awkward Christmas where Clara had spent the entire evening avoiding my eyes while serving turkey with shaking hands. "I don't know, Dad. Emily's got work and the kids have soccer. Bring them," he interrupted. "Clara misses them. Hell, she misses you." The way he said her name, like it was something precious he was afraid to drop, made my stomach clench. Clara, my stepmother. The woman who'd raised me after my mother died, who'd bandaged my scraped knees and taught me to drive. The woman I'd been having increasingly inappropriate thoughts about since my last visit. "Okay," I heard myself say. "We'll be there Friday." But when Friday came, Emily suddenly had a work emergency. The kids were invited to a sleepover. One by one, my shields fell away until it was just me, driving alone down that familiar gravel road with my heart hammering against my ribs. She was waiting on the porch when I pulled up, just like she used to when I was a teenager coming home from dates. But this wasn't the same Clara who'd waited up with hot chocolate and gentle questions about my evening. This Clara was barefoot, wearing a sundress that clung to curves I'd trained myself not to notice. Her hair was longer than I remembered, catching the late afternoon light like spun gold. "Your father's golfing," she said, not moving from the porch swing. "Emily took the kids into town." "Convenient," I muttered, shouldering my duffel bag. Her laugh was nervous, breathy. The same laugh she'd made when she caught me staring at her in the pool all those years ago, when I was 17 and she was this beautiful, untouchable thing that belonged to my father. "I made your favorite," she said, following me into the house. "Pot roast with those little potatoes you like." The house smelled like home and heartbreak. Every room held memories. Clara reading to me when I had nightmares, Clara cheering at my graduation, Clara crying in the hallway after one of Dad's business trips that we both knew weren't about business. "You look tired," I said, really, looking at her for the first time. There were shadows under her eyes, lines that hadn't been there before. "I am tired," she admitted, and something in her voice made me want to gather her in my arms. Tired of pretending. Tired of being alone in this big house. Tired of waiting for your father to remember he has a wife. The admission hung between us like a loaded gun. Dinner was torture in the most exquisite way. She'd lit candles, opened wine, set the table with her good china. It felt like a date, and we both knew it. "Remember when you brought Jessica home?" "For dinner?" she asked, refilling my wine glass. "You were so nervous you spilled spaghetti sauce all over your shirt." "I was nervous because I was bringing a girl home to meet the most beautiful woman I knew," I said, the wine loosening my tongue. "I was afraid you'd outshine her." Clara's cheeks flushed pink. "You always were a charmer." I learned from the best. The way she looked at me then, like I was something she wanted to devour, made my pulse spike. Her foot found mine under the table, a brief touch that sent electricity shooting up my leg. "I should go?" I said, but I didn't move. You should, she agreed, but her foot was still pressed against mine. That's when the storm hit. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. Clara gasped, and I was up and around the table before I realized I was moving. It's okay, I whispered, finding her in the darkness. Just a power outage. But she was trembling, and when lightning illuminated the room, I saw tears on her cheeks. I hate being alone, she whispered. I hate thunderstorms. I hate this house. I kissed her. God help me. I kissed her in the middle of her breakdown, tasting salt and wine and 20 years of suppressed longing. She kissed me back with a desperation that broke my heart, her hands fisting in my shirt like she was drowning, and I was her only lifeline. We can't, she gasped against my mouth. I know, I said, kissing her again. We made it to the living room before sanity returned. Clara was pressed against me on the couch, her dress riding up her thighs, my hands tangled in her hair. This is wrong, she breathed. I know. He's your father. I know. I'm married. I know. She pulled back, studying my face in the flickering candlelight. Then why? Because I've been in love with you since I was 17 years old, I said, the words ripping out of me like a confession. Because every woman I've ever dated has been a pale imitation of you. Because I married Emily, hoping it would make me forget how it felt to want something I couldn't have. Her eyes widened. You can't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. She was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns on my chest. He's cheating again, she said finally. The maid, the nanny. Always someone younger. Someone who hasn't been worn down by 20 years of his indifference. Clara ... I found pictures on his phone, videos. Her voice broke. I've been sleeping in the guest room for 6 months. He hasn't even noticed. I pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her hair, vanilla and jasmine and something uniquely Clara. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the only one who ever looked at me like I was enough, she whispered. Even when you were a teenager, even when you were supposed to see me as your mother, you looked at me like I was beautiful, like I was worthy of love. You are, I said fiercely. You're everything. She pressed her face against my neck and I felt her tears on my skin. I used to lie awake at night, especially after your mother died, wondering what would have happened. If I'd met you first, if I'd been younger, if the timing had been different. It's sick, isn't it, to love your stepson? If it's sick, then we're both infected, I said, tilting her chin up, because I've been dreaming about you for years, waking up hard and guilty and hating myself for it. Lightning flashed again, illuminating her face. In that split second, I saw it, the same hunger that was consuming me, the same desperate need that had been building for decades. Tell me to stop, she whispered, her hand sliding down to rest over my heart. I should have been the strong one, the rational one. Instead, I kissed her again, pouring 20 years of longing into the press of my lips against hers. We didn't hear the car pull into the driveway. We were too lost in each other, too consumed by the fire that had been smoldering between us for years. My hands were under her dress, her legs wrapped around my waist, when the front door slammed open. What the hell is this? The words cut through the room like a blade. Clara jerked away from me, her dress twisted, her lips swollen from my kisses. Dad stood in the doorway, his golf clubs scattered at his feet where he'd dropped them in shock. Dad, his fist connected with my jaw before I could finish the sentence. The taste of blood filled my mouth as I stumbled backward, Clara's scream echoing in my ears. 20 years. He roared, advancing on me. 20 years I've given. You a home, a family, everything I had to give, and this is how you repay me? Don't you dare, Clara said, stepping between us. Her voice was deadly quiet. Don't you dare act like the wounded husband. Where were you last night? With that 20-2-year-old from the country club? The one who calls you daddy? Dad's face went white. Clara, that's not. I found the pictures, she continued, her voice growing stronger. I found the hotel receipts. I found the jewelry charges for women who aren't your wife. So don't you stand there and judge me for finding comfort in the arms of the only man who's ever made me feel like I was worth something. He's my son. He's the best man I know, she shot back, and he's twice the man you've ever been. The fight went out of Dad then. He looked suddenly old, deflated, like a balloon with all the air leaked out. I loved you, he said quietly. No, Clara said, her voice breaking. You possessed me. You collected me like one of your trophies. But you never loved me. If you had, you wouldn't have spent 20 years breaking my heart. Dad left that night. Just packed a bag and drove away without another word. Clara and I sat in the wreckage of our family, holding each other as the storm raged outside. What happens now? I asked, stroking her hair. I don't know, she whispered. I've made such a mess of everything. We've made a mess, I corrected. Both of us. She looked up at me with those green eyes that had haunted my dreams for years. Do you regret it? I thought about Emily, about my children, about the life I'd built that was about to come crashing down. I thought about the guilt that would eat at me for the rest of my life, the family I'd destroyed, the lines I'd crossed. No, I said, and meant it. I don't regret loving you. I regret that it took us this long to be honest about it. She smiled then, the first real smile I'd seen from her all evening. I love you too. I have for years. I know. What are we going to do? I kissed her forehead, breathing in the scent of her skin. We're going to figure it out. Together. That was 6 months ago. Clara filed for divorce the next week. I told Emily the truth, not all of it, but enough. She took the kids and moved back to her mother's house. I can't blame her. I destroyed our marriage the moment I kissed another woman, and the fact that it was my stepmother only made it worse. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Dad hired the best lawyer money could buy, painted Clara as a gold digger and me as a homewrecker. The local papers had a field day. My children won't speak to me. Emily's family has threatened to have me arrested for alienation of affection. But here's the thing about love, real love, the kind that burns through your veins and rewrites your DNA. It's worth fighting for. It's worth the scandal, the judgment, the loss of everything you thought you wanted. Clara and I meet in secret now. Hotel rooms in the next town over, weekend getaways to places where no one knows our story. She wears my mother's perfume, the bottle she kept all these years, waiting for the right moment to use it. When she whispers happy birthday in my ear while I make her cry out beneath me, I know she's not just celebrating another year of my life. She's celebrating the death of the boy who was too scared to claim what he wanted and the birth of the man who finally did. People ask me if I'm ashamed, if I regret destroying my family for a woman old enough to be my mother, if I feel guilty for betraying the man who raised me. The truth is complicated. I am ashamed. Ashamed that I was a coward for so long, ashamed that I let fear keep me from the woman I loved, ashamed that I wasted years of both our lives pretending to be something I wasn't. But I'm not ashamed of loving Clara. I'm not ashamed of the way she looks at me like I hung the moon, or the way she traces my scars with her fingertips and tells me I'm beautiful. I'm not ashamed of the way she cries when I'm inside her, overwhelmed by the intensity of what we share. What we have isn't just lust, though God knows the sex is incredible. It's recognition, the bone-deep knowledge that we were meant to find each other, that all the pain and heartbreak was just the universe's way of making us ready for this moment. She's filing the final divorce papers next week. I've signed the custody agreement that gives Emily primary custody of the kids. We're selling the house, dividing the assets, closing the book on the life we built on lies. And then Clara and I are going to disappear. We've bought a little cottage on the coast, far from the whispers and judgment. We'll grow old together, make up for lost time, build something real out of the ashes of what we destroyed. Tonight, she's sleeping beside me in another anonymous hotel room, her hair spread across the pillow like liquid gold. In the morning, she'll go back to her empty house, and I'll go back to my lonely apartment, and we'll pretend for one more week that we're not slowly dying from the separation. But soon, God, so soon, we'll wake up together every morning. We'll have coffee on the porch and read the newspaper and argue about what to plant in the garden. We'll make love in our own bed, in our own house, without looking over our shoulders for disapproving eyes. Some people will say we're sick, that what we have is wrong. They'll whisper about the stepmother who seduced her stepson, the son who betrayed his father. They'll never understand that love doesn't follow the rules, that sometimes the heart wants what it wants, regardless of convention or morality. But I know the truth. I know that Clara saved me from a life of quiet desperation. I know that I gave her back her sense of worth, her belief that she was worthy of passionate, consuming love. We destroyed a lot of things to get here, marriages, families, reputations, but we also destroyed the lies we were living. And from those ashes, we built something beautiful, something worth fighting for, something worth the price we paid. So the next time someone asks you about forbidden love, about the kind of passion that burns down everything in its path, remember this: some sins taste like redemption, and sometimes the only way to find yourself is to lose everything you thought you were. The sound of her breathing, soft and steady beside me, is the sweetest music I've ever heard. Tomorrow, our real life begins. Tonight, I'm just grateful for the storm that finally gave us the courage to reach for each other in the darkness.